I'm Bruce Marshall, and this is a Marshall Minute Brampton Now update for the week ending the August 1st long weekend 2020. Eid Mubarak to everyone who's celebrating. This is a succinct, once-a-week hotshot of everything important that has happened in Brampton the previous week and what's coming up. Brampton's only professionally produced and only independent broadcast. Brampton, unbought and unbiased. Coming up, we've opened up to Stage 3. Coming up in this report, what Stage 3 means. It doesn't mean, okay, it's all over now. No, we still must be cautious. Anything but cautious was that ridiculous house party on the weekend in Brampton, plus my Marshall rant at getting to the bottom of things like that house party. We need to get smart, not tough. Details on that and more coming up in this Brampton Now update. The top stories this week in Brampton. This is a bit of what it feels like in Brampton this weekend. Yes, we're opening up the drawbridge, but oh, just a little bit, mind you. Mayor Patrick Brown on the decision by the province to open up to Stage 3 in Peel Region.
And given that our medical officers of health agreed that it was safe to move into Stage 3, I believe the province has taken the correct course. We have seen single-digit case counts in Brampton for much of the last week, and boy, have we seen progress over the last month. It was only a month ago we were seeing case counts close to 100 a day, and now we're seeing case counts that are in single digits. And so the work that everyone is doing, wearing a mask, washing their hands, maintaining physical distancing, getting tested, it is working.
For the past few weeks, Mayor Brown has been beating a drum asking both the provincial and the federal governments to help municipalities with the extraordinary costs that they're incurring.
The federal and provincial governments have stepped up to the plate, and we're grateful for that, because this is for frontline municipal essential workers. These are unsung heroes, our transit operators who went to work every day, taking essential workers to work, even though they knew they were at a greater risk. We've had 5 transit operators test positive. They took on a greater risk. You look at our first responders, our public health workers.
In a follow-up to that ridiculous party last weekend, Brown had this to say about the vast majority who follow the rules.
I know the bad stories, the few bad apples, they get more attention, but I'm also very proud of the fact that 99% of the city is doing their job. 99% of the city is being careful. You have senior citizens avoiding going shopping. You've got grandparents who want to see their grandkids, but they aren't because they're being so cautious. I go and visit the transit terminal and everyone's wearing masks. The level of compliance is encouraging.
Deputy Police Chief Mark Andrews echoed similar comments.
I want to emphasize that there are 600,000 plus residents of Brampton, and the citizens of our community, my fellow Bramptonians, have been very responsible and behaved in a very compliant manner over the course of this entire pandemic, and that shouldn't be lost on because of the behavior of a few hundred over the past weekend.
In a moment, Dr. Lawrence Lowe, Chief Medical Officer of Health for Peel Region. We're opening up, and Dr. Lowe wants you to know what Stage 3 doesn't mean. Ahead on the Brampton Now update.
As restrictions start to lift and more public spaces reopen, it's important to continue to protect yourself and others from transmitting COVID-19. Keep 2 meters apart when outside and avoid crowds. Wear a non-medical mask when you're in places where it's difficult to physically distance yourself from others, such as in grocery stores or on public transit. If you need to go out and shop, use contactless payment whenever possible. Don't forget to keep washing your hands, and if you're feeling sick, stay home. Following these steps will help us overcome this outbreak and keep our communities healthy and safe.
This is the Brampton Now update. I'm Bruce Marshall. So we have now opened up to Stage 3, but that doesn't mean we've opened up entirely. Dr. Lawrence Lowe is the region's medical officer of health with what stage 3 doesn't mean.
I want you to know that this doesn't mean that things are done. This simply means that we are now into the hardest part of the pandemic. We need to protect our gains and consistently practice the core 4 behaviors: washing our hands, physical distancing, wearing a mask where you can't distance and where it's mandated, and if you're sick, getting tested and then staying home.
Lowe went on with this warning.
We are globally still in a pandemic, and COVID-19 can be brought back to our community at any time, from anywhere. Ignoring or forgetting precautions jeopardizes our success and the health of you and your loved ones. And remember that this is a disease that we are still learning about, for which there is no cure and no vaccine and no certainty that everything will turn out okay for you or a loved one if you get infected. This weekend has clearly showed us what not to do. Crowded, undistanced parties, especially indoors, where you don't know everyone that's there, where substances might limit your ability to remember who you're in proximity with. There it takes only one person on the makeshift living room dance floor to infect just so many others, and it practically becomes impossible for us to track down the chain of transmission.
And speaking of those parties and the fact that it's the long weekend when everyone has been cooped up for so long, Peel Regional Police Deputy Chief Mark Andrews again on the effort that police and other agencies will be making to put safety first this weekend.
We're also going to be focused on the entirety of community safety. The large parties are one aspect of community safety, but we also need to focus on road safety. We will have a strong presence with our race teams, our anti-road racing teams, that have issued 1,245 tickets over the course of the last several weeks. We will also be out in force in our ride programs, at least 2 teams that will be pursuing a ride over the course of the entire weekend, and we'll be out in force in our noisemaker teams.
And to recap on the opening to stage 3, here's what we won't see so far. What isn't open: amusement parks and water parks, buffet-style food services, dancing at restaurants and bars other than performers hired by the establishment, overnight stays at camps for kids, private karaoke rooms, prolonged or deliberate contact while playing sports. Saunas, steam rooms, bathhouses, and oxygen bars remain closed. Table games at casinos and gaming establishments likewise remain closed. I mentioned earlier that the province and the feds had stepped up to the plate on a couple of matters. A big announcement was Tuesday this week by the city, province, and the feds on funding in Brampton for city operations, but also for transit. A shot of $45 million came from the feds and nearly $38 million from the province and will go to transit infrastructure and transit vehicles. This will include a downtown Brampton mobility hub. The city also announced early plans after a year of study for Brampton U. The province last week announced the Major Capacity Expansion Policy Framework, which allows projects like Brampton U to go forward. The city is working towards having a full proposal ready to present to the province for funding approval in the fall. Peel Police announced this week a pause in what they call their School Resource Officer program. The program has been fraught with allegations that minority students do not get the same treatment under the program and feel they are under surveillance by the state. Both school boards have applauded the move. Coming up, no air show at the X this year, but maybe a bit of an air show over the Greater Toronto Area on Tuesday. Ahead on the Brampton Now Update.
This is your invitation to hear our stories, to engage in our traditions, and connect with our history. Connections as varied as the land. Come experience our country's heritage. Find and book your authentic Indigenous experience at IndigenousCanada.travel.
I'm Bruce Marshall, and this is the Brampton Now Update. Mayor Patrick Brown was called out in a Toronto Star story on Thursday entitled "Patrick Brown Spins False Tale About Ombudsman Report on Niagara Region Chief Administrative Officer Scandal." Yes, it's a mouthful. The story takes Brown to task for statements made in the Brampton Beats Facebook group. Upshot, there's been controversy swirling in Niagara Region for several years, it seems. Brampton has hired some of the people who were employees of Niagara Region at that time. The hires are not made by council, rather by the city's Human Resources Department. But the question remains, are these hires that benefit Brampton in the long run? Were these hires a good idea? There are many in Brampton who answer an emphatic no. Tuesday, the GTA will be playing host to a North American Air Defense Command exercise that will include Canadian and American Air Force fighter jets and an air refueling tanker. The exercise, being in Toronto, puts them in a higher traffic situation than they'd have at some remote air range. However, even at that, Toronto's air traffic is much reduced from normal. Fighter jets sound like fighter jets, and if you hear that sound over Brampton on Tuesday, don't be alarmed. Coming up, some of the events happening in Brampton, from the Caribbean weekend festivities to Eid, and my Marshall rant on getting smart instead of getting tough in Brampton. Ahead on Brampton Now Update. You're watching Brampton Now Update. I'm Bruce Marshall. This weekend and ahead in Brampton, Brampton Farmers Market is Saturday. If you haven't been, please review the protocols for the market at brampton.ca. It would normally be the Caravana weekend. Just because we're being careful, though, doesn't mean that people can't celebrate at home. This Sunday, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., the second annual staging of Brampton Family Fest, sponsored by Jem's Jerk. The virtual COVID-19 edition with the same high energy level of performances on all social media platforms. Find them on Facebook at Brampton Family Fest. Brampton Music Theatre has a fundraising contest called Catch the Ace. It's at bmtcatchtheace.ca. BMT also continues online training programs on their website at bramptonmusictheatre.com. This weekend is one of two feast times, or Eids, on the Muslim calendar, usually a time for feasting together. Canadian Pakistani Friends of William Osler Health invite you to celebrate together from wherever on Sunday, 2 to 4:30 p.m. The third annual Eid for Osler event, virtually this year. Celebrate the festival of Eid while supporting the recognized work and sacrifice of our local healthcare heroes. That's Canadian Pakistani Friends of Osler on Facebook. Coming up, a Marshall Rant. Let's get smart. That's next. I'm Bruce Marshall, and this is the Marshall Rant. Let's get tough. We hear it all the time. We heard it a few weeks ago when the mother and her daughters were killed in that horrible collision. We hear it to do with gun violence. We heard it last weekend in relation to the embarrassing party that attracted 200 partygoers to a Brampton home. Let's get tough. It's easy enough. 3 words. Makes you kind of feel good, doesn't it? Well, we've been getting tough, and it doesn't work. We redirected money from after-school programs to policing. Let's get tough. All it's done is give our police more to do. Let's get tough about our roads. This means let's put increased fines and penalties in place, because surely that allegedly drunken high kid from the fatal collision at 𝗕𝗿𝗺𝗺 and Sandalwood would have thought twice if the penalties had been higher. People like him sit and pause for a moment before they do mayhem, don't they? Oh, no. We know that getting tough means longer sentences, longer times incarcerated with other criminal minds to really solidify your membership in that criminal lifestyle. That's all it buys us. We pay to harden criminals at our expense. That's what getting tough means. I would propose that instead of getting tough, we got smarter. For example, I heard Mark Andrews, Deputy Chief of Peel Police, speaking about getting smarter the other day with respect to these house parties. A number of agencies, including police, will now be working together to nip these parties in the bud. Let's get smart about this. Let's use the tools we have in place. Never mind getting tough. We need to get to the bottom of the problems that continue to bubble up. That horrible collision at the corner of 𝗕𝗿𝗺𝗺 and Sandalwood. Let's get tough, people said. But tough wouldn't keep it from happening. By any measure, the alleged perpetrator there is a very messed up young man. Apparently, someone who has out-of-control addictions. Tough isn't going to change him. But maybe readily available services for addictions might. Do you know that it's nearly impossible to get treatment in a timely manner in Ontario for addictions unless you've got tens of thousands of dollars to spend privately on rehab? Indeed, in this respect, we all bear some responsibility for these things happening. Guns and gangs and young people. Let's get tough. It's just empty words that don't solve anything. It's the illusion of doing something. It's the kind of thing uttered by politicians who haven't got a clue what to do, and maybe who don't want to do anything at all because that will cost money. We know we've gutted services for youth. We know that money has been thrown at law enforcement. And we know that that approach is not succeeding. Spending 56% of our regional tax dollars on policing has not bought us the security we wanted, Peel. Let's get tough, the choir chants. No, let's get smart. Let's get to the bottom of our problems on the roads. Let's find a solution to guns and gang violence. Let's find a solution to ridiculous house parties that render Brampton a laughing stock. Let's get smart and solve these problems. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. I'm Bruce Marshall, and that's it for this week. Please subscribe to the Brampton Now Update channel on YouTube or follow #MarshallMinute on Facebook for lots of Brampton Need to Know that you won't find anywhere else. Your comments and suggestions are always welcome, and if you've got a Brampton story to tell, get in touch with me through the channel you're watching on right now. Stay strong, Brampton. Brampton strong. We're all in this together. I'm Bruce Marshall. Thanks for watching Brampton Now Update.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broad.